Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I'm going to talk about the weirdest and most controversial song that Billy Joel ever wrote. But it goes without saying that while this song sort of appeared midway in his career, by that time he had long established himself as one of the best and most sophisticated songwriters of all time. I would say that Billy Joel's songs are really modern standards. So the era that we consider standards, sometimes it's known as the Great American Songbook, are really from the 1920s into the early-ish, some would say mid 1950s. These were the songs, many of them written for Broadway, others written to be sung by the great pop stars of the day, the Bing Crosbys, the Sinatras, later the Andy Williamses, and people like that, Perry Como. And then rock and roll happened, and the nature of songwriting shifted. You had people like Jimmy Webb, who had one foot in the classic pop era and one foot in the sort of rock and even psychedelic eras. One of my favorite songwriters of all time. And then you had, what was that? And then you, see, I told you this is live-ish. Well, it is live. Um, but am I? But then you had the era of the great singer-songwriter, and all that meant was the songwriter who used to be Mr. Smith and the singer who used to be Mr. Jones are now one person. And you had people, like James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, the list goes on. And of these singer-songwriters, Billy Joel was one of the most sophisticated, great knowledge of classical music, wonderful pianist in his own right. Just wrote great songs. I mean, straight out the gate with his first album, you had She's Got Away. And if he only wrote that one song and then vanished, he would be considered a great songwriter. But of course, Piano Man was the next album, his breakout album. And you had the song Piano Man, again, one of the best songs of all time, The Ballad of Billy the Kid, which is almost like a progressive pop song. Captain Jack, another great one. Street Life Serenade had one of my favorites, Los Angelinos, The Entertainer. His next album, Turnstiles from '76, even bigger, New York State of Mind, which really has become a standard. Say Goodbye to Hollywood was also quite big. The Stranger in '77, possibly his most complete album, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. What a song. She's Always a Woman, another sort of modern standard. Moving Out, Anthony's song. I cannot not think of the Family Guy reference to that when I hear it. And I could go on because the list goes on and on. My Life and Big Shot from the 52nd Street album. And he was someone who really maintained his popularity into the 80s. There was a great song, Sometimes a Fantasy, from the 1980 album Glass Houses. Really, really good song. Songs from the Attic in 1981, I do believe, had some great, great music. The Nylon Curtain the following year. Good Night Saigon, wonderful story there. And Allentown, great, great song. I would say that's kind of a neo standard as well. And his success continued and continued. He had another huge hit with Uptown Girl in 1983. He was someone where the '70s and the '80s were pretty much equally good to him because the quality of the songwriting and of the musicianship kept on going. And then came the album Stormfront in 1989. And he has a song on that album that he hates. And I can see why, because from a musical point of view, it's one of his most simple songs. Billy Joel was saying that he doesn't like how there aren't really any chord changes. It's all no key changes rather. And he just thought that the song was a bit basic, but it's a song that really crosses the boundaries between the traditional novelty song and a song that has novel attributes. Now, this song is We Didn't Start the Fire. And its origin is quite interesting. He was talking to someone who said, well, nothing ever happened in the 1950s. And as someone who grew up in the 1950s, Billy Joel said, well, wait a minute, stuff did happen. And he ended up writing a song whose lyrics basically tell the story of the most interesting events in world history, military history, pop culture history, and political history from the sort of very tail end of the 1940s, early 1950s, up to the present day, which at that time was 1989. And the lyrics have been notable for their objectivity, their accuracy, but still they have great meter and at times great rhyme. And it was really a very interesting song. The song had a lot of success. The music video was all over. I'm just finding a quote from Billy Joel now, looking at this. He said, "It was just my luck that the USSR decided to close down shop, and um, so it had symmetry to it." Meaning, so what he's getting at there is the song really covered most of the Cold War, because the Cold War technically ended just about a year and a half or so after the song was written in August of 1991. It was pretty much over. And the 50s was really just a few years after the beginning of the Cold War. So it really did encapsulate that era, the boomer era, if you will. It's the history of the boomers, is really what it was. Now, Billy Joel continued and continues to have a lot of success subsequent to that song, even though, as we were talking about yesterday, novelty songs come in different shapes and sizes. Because yesterday we were talking about Disco Duck, um, a song that has zero profundity. And yet, some novelty songs, and you could say We Didn't Start the Fire is Billy Joel's novelty song. It's incredibly profound, and it shows that the songwriter has a great deal of historical knowledge and has a great way of contextualizing it in music. Um, it's definitely the song that, when I say it's the weirdest song from Billy Joel's catalog, it isn't because the song itself is grating or weird, but it's simply because it's the only real novelty song in his catalog. All of his other songs are just songs, really good songs. And so this will always stand as something that people will remember for very different reasons than the ones that they remember his other great songs for. Like, subscribe, happy birthday to We Didn't Start the Fire, and we'll see you next time. Take care.